Hey guys, Greg from Dead Men Walking Podcast, now on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. I'll be traveling down to Tullahoma, Tennessee for the Why Calvinism Conference, February 22nd through 24th, with some of my rowdy Reformed Baptist brothers, or Deepwater Presbyterians as they like to say. I'll be hosting the event and live podcasting from each of the sessions. The conference theme is right in the name. Why is Calvinism important to believers, churches, and sound theology? You're going to hear from some pretty great speakers like Dr. James White, Jeffrey Rice, Matt Slick, Keith Foskey, Claude Ramsey, Braden Patterson, Andrew Rappaport, Brad Skelf, and many, many more. Plus, Dr. James White will be debating Jason Bretta on the doctrine of atonement on the final night. And there's going to be over $3,000 in Bible Rebind giveaways from Post Tenebris Lux and music led by Kenny and Claire. Pre-conference starts on February 21st with a session on the dangers of full preterism, and the full conference is February 22nd through 24th. So swing by openairtheology.com to grab your tickets. That's openairtheology.com. Make sure you find me at the conference and say hello. See you in Tullahoma.
My mom knows I'm recording.
Right now?
She just called me.
Oh, yeah.
Mom, I'll reply and get back to you when I'm done. Okay, all right. I'm not.
Hi, Miss
anyway.
Penny.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Cause Politics on the Fight Laugh Feast Network.
I really am surprised he didn't take it. Like, hey, Mom, I'm on the show right now.
So the Swifties are happy
Oh, yeah?
from the weekend.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, okay.
You know?
I heard.
Yes, congratulations, Chiefs, my Kansas City people. I see y'all out there.
Man,
We
I
did it,
wanted
baby.
Purdy. I don't like San Francisco, but I do like Purdy. And I wanted Purdy to
Purdy's
win.
story is amazing.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, it's a very, very conflicted
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, I actually wanted.
You probably wanted Kansas City.
Well, I wanted the Ravens, and I wanted
Yeah.
to face off with the Lions.
Lions,
That's
yeah.
what I wanted.
I did want the Lions.
Me too.
I did, yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, serious.
There's this meme because when Purdy won the playoff 2 weeks ago, he walks out of the football stadium, with a briefcase and slacks on. And
Really?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And he's walking out, and someone put I'm going home to fix my computer now.
I better leave that dude alone.
So Knox, I'm supposed to read this ad, but I'm really. What is that?
Oh, this is not an ad for these guys, but this is a hydrogen water. It's kind of blowing up right now. It's kind of the new hot.
What is that thing?
So
What is hydrogen water? Isn't all water made of hydrogen?
Well, this adds more molecules
aerates
to it, and it allows you to get more vitamins out of the stuff that you eat.
Out of the air.
Actually, get so a lot of water. How are you doing this to me?
I don't know. It's just
Because I can go on this
it also
a
lights
long
up,
time.
doesn't it?
It
It
does
also-
when I charge it.
It
But
started fizzing.
You can-
and I was just sitting there, and
It's like-
I'm like, what's going on?
it's nuclear.
Okay, yeah.
No,
that's what
no,
I
but
figured.
so it's really good for you, and it actually hydrates you. So you can drink a lot of water and not be hydrated.
What?
Yes, believe it or not, it's very true.
What?
Yeah, it's very true. And so
I'm going to ask my
this
attorney
is-
about this.
Depends on how much salt you're eating.
Yeah, that's true.
We
That's
got a
actually true.
missions conference coming up in March. Our Lord Jesus sent out his disciples into all the earth to make disciples and baptize them. Throughout the history of the church, the Lord has raised up servants to go forth with courage to bring the word of the gospel to the farthest corners. In fact, we talked to one of our friends about the cannibals
Yes.
that John G. Patton went and took the gospel to last
right.
week. This year, our Christ Church annual missions conference speakers are giving biographical sketches of a handful of exemplary missionaries. Scripture teaches us to imitate the faith of those who are faithful. So join us in Moscow for a weekend reflecting on the great providence of God and sending out men who brave the darkness of heathen lands to bring the light of Christ's gospel. You can sign up at www.christkirk.com/missions-2024. That's christkirk.com/missions-2024. And come out and come join us in Moscow and be encouraged. Very grateful to have with us David Younts. He is not our lawyer. Who wrote this? But we do have him on our show a lot.
He could be. He could be my
He's
lawyer.
the unofficial attorney of Fight Laugh Feast. Not really. We do love him. David Younts is a veteran and attorney providing criminal defense with the mission to fight for the freedom and constitutional rights, particularly of military service members, veterans, and American citizens facing serious criminal charges. Davis, thanks for coming back on Cross Politic.
Hey, brothers, good to see you.
Yeah, you can send that invoice to Gabe.
Hasn't Davis like? Have you noticed if you go back and watch the first show at Davis and see how buttoned up he was, and now when he comes on the show, he's 2 seconds from wearing a hoodie underneath his blazer. I promise you. He's so chill now.
Well, he already got the gold mic.
Yeah, I know.
I'm waiting for the gold teeth.
That's his Rush Limbaugh effect.
Oh, Davis. So got a couple things in sort of attorney, I don't know,
Legal
court world stuff happened last week. And we were like, who are we going to talk to about this? Oh, we got to talk to David Younts about this. So, so first off, the Department of Justice had some kind of special report that was released last Thursday, and which basically said that Biden is not going to be prosecuted for he remember the classified documents that were found in his garage
first in Trump's, and then they went after, and then they found classified
Then
documents also in Biden's.
Then they
garage.
found them in Biden's garage, and they were like in his car
next to his Corvette.
Next to his Corvette.
Yeah. So the long-awaited report comes out about these papers that were found next to his Corvette, and the Justice Department has basically said they're declining to press any charges. In part because of Biden's poor memory, and Special Counsel Robert Hur described President Biden, age 81, as, quote, a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory who has diminished faculties in advancing age.
Wow.
So, I mean, we have actually several questions about this, but first of all, we just need to know, like, so what is your read on this report?
Yeah, so this is a report where the Department of Justice and the FBI are saying there's evidence that crimes were committed. There's evidence that this was a violation of the law, but we're not going to recommend prosecution in this case because it's unlikely to get a conviction, because President Biden in front of a jury would come across as sympathetic, and he would come across as someone who didn't have any ill intent when he violated the law, because he's a well-meaning old man, he's diminished, and he doesn't have a sharp memory anymore, so it would be unlikely to get a conviction. That's really what this report is saying. So this happens all the time in criminal cases when Department of Justice or other entities are looking at a prosecution. At times they'll say, sure, there's evidence that a crime was committed, we could charge this and take it to trial, but it's unlikely we'd get a conviction because of some factors. Here, those factors, if they weren't so serious, if we weren't talking about the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of our military, would almost be humorous. We'd almost sort of chuckle and be like, oh, yeah, Grandpa's not going to go to jail because he's a well-meaning old man and he's lost a step.
So, Gabe, you got to turn off your notifications. But I want to know,
my faculties.
Gabe's
process.
Tell your mom you're still recording.
Gabe's diminished faculties.
I heard a beep and
forgot where he was.
So Davis, it seems like the obvious question is yes, he's the commander-in-chief. He's got codes to nukes. Why is this guy
it doesn't this like kind of lend credence to what is it, the 25th Amendment, where the president can be de-seated from office for his faculties?
Right. So it really begs the question. It's one way or the other. He is of such diminished capacity that the Department of Justice isn't going to prosecute him, even though there's evidence that he committed federal crimes. They're not going to prosecute him for that because of that diminished capacity. And yet we're not going to invoke the 25th Amendment, which is a provision that says, hey, the vice president and the principal executive officers, read cabinet officials, can come together and a majority of them can start proceedings to remove the president based on diminished capacity or inability. So that's the question I have. Just logically, how can it be both ways? If he's not capable of being prosecuted, or we shouldn't prosecute him according to DOJ because of this diminished memory and these other issues, then why is it that he's still qualified to serve as the president of the United States? And again, this is not a hypothetical we're dealing with when we talk about why we even have a 25th Amendment. This goes back to Woodrow Wilson.
Right.
Woodrow Wilson was a vegetable. He suffered from a stroke. He was lying in a bed. He couldn't even sign documents. There's historical anecdotal evidence that his wife or others would just come in and move his hand on the pen to sign documents and orders and those things. And so he served for months and months in that diminished capacity. Right. So that's why we have a 25th Amendment.
I got to ask, Davis, you've been here enough to know that I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist.
A little bit?
A lot.
Drinking
which is why I drink hydrogen water. I don't trust people even to make my own water for me. Okay, and so we've been the right has been just the narrative of Biden being unfit for office has been something that's come out of our mouths so much on the right. We've been seeing it for a long time. And the left has been saying, no, this guy is sharp. He's acute. He's the man. What was it that Gavin Newsom said? There isn't a better person to run for president than Joe Biden. And I know that we have these offices that we're supposed to be trusting, like the DOJ and so on and so forth. But is this political where they're getting us to do their work for them? They can't remove Biden from, running for president or at a president without actually having some sort of reason to do so. And with something like this is me being, I know I'm getting out there. Is this helping them in the sense that, hey, we got this report. They act like nothing's really wrong. We're going to keep going normal. And then we just get a little bit louder about saying what you just got done saying. This guy can't think. He can't function. He's not there. And they're like, well, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. And then they follow the process and do what they wanted to do the whole time. And we helped them do it.
I don't know all the answers to that, but what's bizarre about this whole story is this comes out. This report is made public, and that night they put Biden out for a press conference in the afternoon, past his bedtime, right? They put him out in front of reporters, and for the first time in months and months and months, they actually allowed reporters to ask him questions, and some of those questions even appeared to be unscripted, because most of his press conferences, it's scripted questions. Pre-approved, and he has no cards and all of that, right? That's not conspiracy. That's been established. This was a press conference where they didn't appear to have scripted questions, and it went very, very poorly. So it made it look worse. So it was almost as if they're either, trying to get conservatives or others to do their job for them, or they're testing it to see if it goes terribly, do the normies even care? Yeah. Is anyone even paying attention enough to have enough of an uproar to do something about this? If there's enough of an uproar, maybe we will act. If there's not, then we'll just move forward and we'll just prop him up like Weekend at Bernie's and have him get through the presidential election so that we can do what happens next. I mean, again, I don't know which of those two it is, but it feels that way. Yeah. But the one thing I will say about the 25th Amendment is this. You have to have the vice president and these cabinet officials, all appointed by the president, come together, and a majority of them agree to do this. It gets presented to Congress, and there's all these follow-ons. So it's the kind of thing, unless the president is willing to go along with it and not push back, if you're going to do it, you better win. Right? Like, you better win. Maybe it's not like a violent coup, but you better win because you are politically done if you don't. So I think that's the other hesitation that individuals have in participating in a 25th Amendment type action, starting those proceedings.
You don't know how good I felt to turn back and look at you and you didn't have a tinfoil hat on. It was it made me feel good. Hey, I do have to ask though too, does this have any bearing on, because Trump's case is still going on too, right, with the file. So does this have any bearing on Trump's case? Is this good for him that this came out like that?
Only politically, right? Only in the eyes of the public that see a double standard and say, okay, well, if Trump had dementia, then we wouldn't prosecute Trump, because basically they're saying there's evidence there of a crime, but we don't think we can get a conviction because it's a sympathetic defendant with reduced faculties. So they walked a very fine line in this case.
Van Gelder Technologies is a U.S.-based custom software development company specializing in cross-platform mobile applications, web applications, and desktop programs. Leveraging open-source frameworks, they quickly and efficiently build custom software solutions that are tailor-made to fit your specific needs. There's no need for new Christendom companies to be content with offering subpar mobile or web experiences. Van Gelder Technologies can help you build better software for the glory of God. You can learn more and view examples of their work or get in touch at www.vangelder.tech. That's VANGELDER.TECH, vangelder.tech. Van Gelder Technologies, where technology and tradition meet.
For the glory of God.
The glory of God. Okay. Topic number 2.
Yep.
Another thing happened on Thursday.
Oh, Thursday's a big day.
Thursday was
last week. Yeah.
February 8th. Something was in the air. We had SCOTUS at a hearing on the legality of the Colorado Supreme Court ruling that excluded Trump from the presidential ballot. So, Davis, how did this even make it through Colorado to SCOTUS? How did we even get here? And then, of course, what is your take on the discussion?
No, that's a great place to start. So we have to talk a little bit about what happened and how we even got here. Yeah. So what happened is a group of Colorado voters came together and they brought litigation trying to say that President Trump should be disqualified from the ballot because he participated in an insurrection. He is an insurrectionist. So this goes 14th Amendment, Clause 3 of the 14th Amendment was passed after the Civil War in 1869 to try to prevent Confederate officers, Confederate leaders, people like Jefferson Davis from running for president of the United States, holding office in the United States. Well, what happened is Colorado held this, this is a little bit clown world, but what they did is they held a trial where they put forward evidence to try to prove to the satisfaction of this trial court that President Trump was an insurrectionist. So against all norms and legal process, most of what they admitted was hearsay, which was the January 6th report from the Democrats in Congress. And then they called an expert to the stand, and this expert is a professor, and this professor testified that, even if Trump didn't say specific things about acting violently or otherwise, the words he used could have an impact on violent extremists that would cause them to engage in an insurrection. So the words he used were carefully chosen to foment this supposed insurrection, and that's what happened. So that was the evidence, this hearsay and this crazy expert opinion that no one really understands what court would allow that in as evidence. That's how this bubbled up. So it's a clearly politically motivated process that occurred that relied heavily upon hearsay, which is not something we rely upon in any court proceeding.
Doesn't the fact that SCOTUS picked this up? So, actually, let me clarify a question there. So that was a case. Did Trump have lawyers present? Was he able to defend himself?
That's what I was going to ask too. I was thinking the exact same.
thing. What kind of court case? And then I assume off that court case, that was the grounds for them kicking Trump off the ballot.
Right. So this was a civil proceeding, not a criminal proceeding. So Trump could have attorneys present and could present evidence, but they were limited in what they could present. And there's also this issue of the other pending criminal cases against Trump. So how much could he testify to and how much could he say? But as soon as the judge allowed this hearsay in the form of the January 6th report from Congress, as well as this expert testimony, the outcome was certain at that point. There wasn't much Trump could have done.
And so, just again clarify. So that court hearing, I'm gonna put this in air quotes. Yeah. Hearing,
the kangaroo court.
Was it at night? Is the question.
Was that to decide if Trump was going to be on the presidential ballot or not?
Correct. Whether or not he could be on the Republican ballot in the Republican primary in Colorado, because they found he was an insurrectionist, therefore disqualified.
Now, I assume then that maybe somebody in Colorado or somebody appealed this ruling then for it to get all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Right. Trump appealed it all the way to the Colorado Supreme Court. The Colorado Supreme Court, a small majority, a split decision, ruled against him, and then they asked for an appeal directly to the Supreme Court.
Wait.
This is nuts.
Wait.
This kangaroo court gets appealed to the Colorado Supreme Court, and a majority of the Colorado Supreme Court.
Well, remember, this is where Jack the cake baker is having all the problems.
I know.
So
this is the same Supreme Court.
Yeah.
All the Christians that are still in Colorado need to send their kids to learn law from a Christian, and we need to replace the whole. That's really bad.
You said this is clown world. I think you said this is a little bit clown world. Do you want to reconsider what you said? That's like a lot clown world. I'm just going to answer this
go ahead.
right now. Everybody needs to go back and reread the section of Pilgrim's Progress in Vanity Fair. If you haven't read that recently, I just went back and reread it, because Vanity Fair is where they come into the city, where Christian and faithful come, and
right.
and there is this. They are arrested because while they're being pestered by the worldly people there, they have the audacity to say, we're not interested, we don't believe in this, we serve the King, we're Christians. And because they say that, it is very harmful, It's very hurtful. It's stirring up insurrection.
Wow.
In Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
And they are arrested, they are beaten, and then there's this like trumped up trial. And I mean, and
pun intended.
Yeah. John Bunyan is brilliant on so many levels, but it captures. I mean, talk about clown world and clown courts.
Yep.
He gets it to a T, and it's well worth your time.
So, Davis, so the Supreme Court heard this now.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court had a hearing on Thursday. I heard the Colorado thing. So what was some of first of all, why don't they allow camera access into the SCOTUS rooms anyways?
Really?
But secondly, yeah, seriously. I think
I know why.
It's public. It's a public hearing.
Okay.
We get audio.
No.
I think they should. Yeah.
Okay. And then
so what was there? I didn't follow everything, but seems to me that there were some odd questions and things going on in that Supreme Court hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 2.5 hours. And if you listen to it like I did, some of it is just funny, even for a non-attorney, just because of the odd things that were being said and that happened. So Trump's attorneys are there arguing, listen, this was never meant to apply to the president of the United States. And even if it was intended to do that Congress has the authority to decide whether or not there was an insurrection or otherwise. Colorado was arguing, fascinating, that progressives were arguing states have plenary authority under Article 2 of the Constitution to do anything they want with elections, essentially, which was wild to hear, just to think that they would be the ones arguing that. But there were some really interesting moments in it, and I want to be somewhat careful how I say this. But for example, Justice Sotomayor was the only person in the room, and I think probably the only person listening, that did not understand that Trump's attorney was talking about a case called Term Limits v. Thornton rather than just term limits in general. So she begins asking questions awkwardly as if the attorney was referring just to the idea of term limits as opposed to a specific Supreme Court case that had been briefed, that had already been talked about. Everyone knew it except Justice Sotomayor. So that was just very confusing and concerning to think that everybody's following this except for a Supreme Court justice that's going to have to rule on it. Wow. The other fascinating point, I think one of the most interesting points, is Justice Alito. He sort of alluded to it in an earlier question, and then towards the end of oral argument, he goes, okay, this clause in the 14th Amendment talks about insurrection, and it also talks about someone who has provided aid and comfort to an enemy. So he's like, okay, hypothetically speaking, let's say President of the United States there was an enemy country, and another nation repeatedly threatened the United States, repeatedly called the United States an enemy, and said they would do everything in their power to destroy the United States. He didn't say Iran in the hearing, but that's what he was talking about, right? Everybody understands that's specifically what he's talking about if you watch what Iran is saying. And then he said, let's take the hypothetical a little further. Let's say a president or someone holding an office gives money to that enemy or allows funds to be released for that enemy. Couldn't a state then find that they have provided aid and comfort to an enemy, and therefore couldn't they be disqualified? And read that to say President Obama and President Biden have done that. So that was, I think, one of the most interesting parts about this, because Alito was getting into some of the practical implications, but that was a very interesting point that he made, is if you're going to play this game, we have to read all of it and we have to take it to its logical conclusion. So that was
What was the response? What was the response from the lawyers?
Oh, they didn't have one. They wanted to dodge it. And I don't know that Alito expected a response. Sometimes justices do things like that by saying, I'm sending a message that there are practical implications about this that you're not thinking about. But I think the other interesting that was almost funny is there was this discussion. Colorado kept arguing, don't worry about what other states might do and whether or not other states might try to remove a Democrat from the ballot or otherwise under this same sort of authority they're talking about. That's just unlikely to happen. It's never happened before. This is the first time in our history where something like this has happened. And the justice's response was, okay, but impeachment used to be rare. And now we have impeachment proceedings all the time in the last few years. So I'm not convinced. Right. I'm not convinced that your idea that this won't happen is a reasonable assumption. So I think that was pretty interesting as well.
Colorado really is the place where it's the test bait. It's a test place for all the liberal ideas and concepts. I was thinking, is there a conservative version like that around? I'm thinking maybe Florida. Florida's kind of like our version.
But it's, I mean, even then, a lot of those things that plays that DeSantis would run, I disagree with.
Yeah, but some of those still, I think, are within the constitutional bounds. This is way out of line.
Davis, based on the arguments, I assume the actual ruling comes out like in the summertime.
Yeah,
I think they'll rush it, so I think it will be out this spring. I mean, they took this on an expedited nature. They do everything slow, but I think they'll move pretty quickly on this.
So, and are you making any predictions on what you think what the outcome is going to be based on the oral arguments?
Yeah, I think they're going to rule against Colorado, but I think they're going to do it as narrowly as possible. So look for them to come up with some sort of very, very benign compromise, like, we're not convinced that the language office under the United States or officer is intended to apply to someone running for president. Or they might say Colorado acted too quickly. Colorado doesn't have the authority to keep someone off the ballot. Congress could address whether or not someone's been is engaged in an insurrection, and then Congress could act. So I think they will rule in Trump's favor. I think they'll rule in Trump's favor probably 8-1, maybe 9-0, but it will be very, very narrow. I would expect Alito or Thomas or Gorsuch might write their own opinions, even concurring in the result, but addressing certain issues. So those will be pretty interesting.
Well, I'm still stuck back. How did you get 2 hours to listen to all of this? I mean,
Gabe asked me to, and I'll send him an invoice. That's fine.
I didn't approve that.
That's $3,000. Hold on. Hey, Davis,
he'll do anything for that.
Real quickly, what is it that you're really paying attention to or focusing on, or that has your attention that maybe that we all need to be paying attention to and we're not?
Question.
In this issue, I think what is most telling to me, and it goes to the 25th Amendment, it goes to these other issues, and I think your Vanity Fair example is so perfect. We are living in a world, we are residing in a country where there is a disconnect between those who believe in truth and reality and just like the fundamental definitions of words and those that don't. Right. So, as Christian conservatives who believe in God's law and ultimate standards, who believe God is the ultimate standard, God's word is the ultimate standard for everything, there are certain things we just won't do. There's certain games we won't play. We won't try to redefine words like insurrection. We won't try to twist a Civil War era provision that was specifically designed for that into something it's not, just for political gain. We don't typically do that, nor should we, morally or ethically. But we live in a world where the other side, it's all about the ends, right? It's all about the ends. They don't care how they get there. Colorado doesn't care that this is absurd. They don't care that the whole trial was a joke. They don't care about any of that as long as it gets the outcome they desire, which is preventing Trump from being on the ballot and winning. So we have to recognize that, particularly as Christians in our society, society is being pulled apart at the seams because we're not even using the same language anymore, right? We're not even in the same plane in that regard.
Yeah.
I got a question for him, but let's go backstage.
Yeah.
I think this actually plays into kind of the whole don't punch right.
Yeah, no
conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And like how do you play this game politically when the other side is committed to breaking the rules?
All the rules.
So hold on, Davis. If you got another minute with us, we'll go backstage, and I want to get the unofficial Fight Laugh Feast attorney's opinion on this.
All right. Davis, thank you for joining us, brother. Appreciate you. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic. See you guys in the backstage.
You sit in church week after week, embracing the truth of God's Word. You believe the gospel and claim Jesus Christ as your Lord. Yet you continue to struggle with pornography. You feel like a hypocrite, returning to the sin you hate that mocks the God you love. You desperately wonder, Is lasting freedom even possible? Yes, you can overcome pornography, but not alone. 2 Timothy 2:22 says, "Now flee from youthful lusts and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart." Only by repeatedly running from sin to Christ with other believers can you hope to enjoy lasting freedom. You can live with purity and integrity. Take courage, seek accountability, and do whatever is necessary. Get equipped at accountable2you.com.